Hey there. Now let's look about looping through lists. So first, before looping through the list, let's see what lists actually are. So lists is a collection of different variables, and these variables can have different data types as well. So Python allows you to have lists that can contain different variables of different data types. We will look into this in more detail when we talk about NumPy, because it is very important to understand the concept of arrays and lists. So we will look this in more depth when we talk about NumPy. And so far, this is, you can say that this is a built-in default function in Python, and these lists enable you to give you the power to store a lot of variables using one particular list, and these variables can have different data types. So let's say you want to go through this list, you want to iterate through this list. You will use the for loops for that, and the syntax for it is something like this. So for the item in my list, so what we're doing here, this item could be X as we saw earlier, and this X would just read every item in the list and then we can print it. So we're doing nothing, we're reading these elements in the list and then we're printing them. So this is just a way of iterating, accessing as we iterate through the list. So the output should be 1 2 3 4 Python is neat. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so the next functionality we will learn over here is the break function. So the break function is something that breaks the loop even though the conditions are not met, or even though the list is not iterated completely. So we saw that the iteration over here was completed from 1 to neat, and it was completed over here. But over here, if we want to check a particular condition, like let's say we're looking for the condition of if you find Python in the list, then you will stop further iteration. And for that purpose, we use the functionality of break. So if the item, which is over here, like I said before, the variables should have meaningful names, and item is a better name than X, so let's go with that. So if the item is Python, then we will break the loop, and this particular statement will not be printed after this. So let's run this. So as you can see, the Python is not printed because the last item was Python on which the loop break. So opposite to break, there's another functionality which we call the continue, which, let's say, you can say that on a particular condition, you can say it continues to execute the statements within the loop. So the functionality of continue gives us the power to skip these particular instructions, and whenever this particular condition is true, then we go from here to the for loop over here. So this is something like, if this happens, you do not have to print the next statement, whatever they were. And so if this condition was true, then you just do not have to run any consecutive statements. You just have to go to the next item in the list. So as you can see, the first item in our list is 1. So when it reads it to be 1, it says to continue, and the item 1 is not printed. And as you can see in this output, 1 is not present. As it read 1, it skipped that and it continued iterating the other items. So moving on, let's talk about another functionality which we call enumerate. So enumerate gives us the power to know the index of the particular item in the list. So for this, we have to use a different syntax. First, we were using only one variable over here. Now we will use two variables. One will tell us the index, which is the position of the item, and the value will tell us the value of that item. So now we're going to enumerate the list and find out two valuable informations: where it is located in the list based on its index value, and what is the value. So this is we're going to print it, and this particular syntax, it might be a little alien to you, but what it does over here is that, do you see these curly brackets over here? So it tells us this print function that wherever you see these curly brackets, replace these curly brackets with these two values. So IDX replaced this space over here gets replaced by this, and this space over here gets replaced by this. So it's a very good format to write print values. You can use that if you like. So let's run and find it out. So now you can see that each value is printed along with its index, which is quite valuable, especially when you have to find out the specific value, you can say the position of that item.